What's up YouTube? Robbie Vapes back again, and today we are checking out the ModVapa Panda V12, so stay tuned. That is right guys, this might be one of the most unique and confusing and mind-boggling tanks I've reviewed to date. Why? Because all the coils are just so different on this tank. I've actually had it for almost a month now, and I'm glad I waited this long to do the review because there is so much to tell you guys about this tank, and it is so hard to put it into words. And this is probably going to end up being a little bit of a longer review, but I'll try and cut it out and edit it a little bit so that it's not super long, but there is so much to talk about here. Let's talk about the pros and cons about the tank itself first, then we'll move on to the coils and what makes it so different. And then of course we get down and dirty with this thing and check out what you get in the box, the overall look of it, the appearance, things like that. Then we'll take it back up top and tell you my overall recommendation. So with that being said, let's talk about the tank itself and the pros and cons. Let's start with the cons because there's really only one con and it's very subjective, and that is of course the drip tip. The drip tip is an airflow style drip tip, very similar to TFV4, in fact almost an exact copy. It does have that inner tube where the airflow comes in, then it's almost like a drip tip within a drip tip, if you know what I mean. That's what this thing has. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of it, but it doesn't hurt either, and it's honestly the only thing I can think of that's a major con for me personally. Now another subjective con for you guys, for me it's actually a huge pro, is the draw on this is a little bit tighter. It's not going to be massive airflow, it's going to be a little bit restrictive, and it's going to give you that nice dense vape. So again, it depends on what you're looking for. If you want that nice wispy airflow coming in, then maybe look elsewhere, but if you want that dense vape that comes from that little bit of a restrictive draw, again, it's not super restrictive. I did the review on the Yokozuna tank. That one was much more restrictive. This one's kind of in between. I would consider it more like a Kanger sub tank, restrictiveness wise, but of course tank performs way different than that. But that would be the closest thing to compare it to as far as the airflow goes. Apart from that, the overall design is great. It does have an airflow or a juice control valve. It has an airflow control valve. It has top fill, which is nice. The overall design of it's great. It's got a pretty decent fill size, and it is top fill as well. So it's got pretty much everything you're looking for in a sub-ohm tank, and that's when we get to the coils. So that's kind of the pros and cons a little bit there, but let's talk about the coils, and there are so many to choose from. There is a 0.2 ohm coil, which is recommended between 30 and 70 watts. Honestly, I've taken up to 85, no problem. I think that's the preferred vape range for me. It gives the densest, most flavorful clouds at 85 watts. Anything more than that though, you are risking a burnt hit or a dry hit when you're chain vaping, especially around that 90 watt mark. You start to feel a burnt hit come in, but 85 watts seems to work no problem at all. Definitely recommended in that range. Then you have the 0.5 ohm coil, which is recommended I think between 30 and 100 watts or something like that. It works best around 50 to 60 watts to be honest. I wouldn't take it much higher than that. Then you have the 0.4 ohm coil, which is recommended at I think 25 to 60 watts or something in that range, and it vapes pretty well at 40 watts. And again, all these recommended wattages are so far off from what you'd expect for that type of resistance coil. And that leads me to my big one. They have a 1 ohm, that's right guys, 1 ohm, a whole ohm Clapton coil that claims to be able to reach 160 watts. Now, does it for sure? I cannot tell you, to be honest. And that's the problem, is that because it's such a high resistance coil, the voltage on all my devices maxes out well before it gets to the 160 watt range. I think on the home record, which I'm using right now, it maxes out at like 80 watts or something like that. Like, it's really low wattage. So at 80 watts, it performs no problem. And on my DNA 200, I think it maxes out at like 103 watts or 95 watts, somewhere in that range, give or take. And again, it performs very well at that wattage. I've heard that it performs very well at 120 watts. I don't know what device they were using to get that kind of wattage, because again, all my devices are maxing out the voltage before we actually get to that higher wattage mark. So from what I can tell, it does work pretty well. I'm actually using the 1 ohm coil right now at 50 watts, and it seems to be working pretty well for me. The flavor's there. I'm still breaking in the coil a little bit more, so this is my second Clapton I've been using, the second 1 ohm Clapton. There's also a 1.2 ohm, which works well at about 50 watts. There's also a 1 ohm coil as well that is not meant for high wattage, and it vapes well at vapes well at 10 to 20 watts in that range. I pushed up to about 23, 24 watts, no problem. Wouldn't push it much higher than that. So The big thing with this is, and the biggest pro I can give you in general, is that this really is a tank designed for every vaping style. You have everything from the 10 watt range to the 160 watt potentially range. And again, I say potentially because it's so hard to judge with maxing my voltage on all my devices. Now, with that being said, guys, that's kind of my overall thoughts on it initially. I have to be honest, I wasn't super thrilled with this device, and that's because I stayed in the recommended wattage range for a lot of these coils. For example, the 0.2, it was recommended between 30 and 70 watts. I was vaping around 60 and got no flavor, decent vapor production, but no flavor at all. Once I took it over that 70 watt range, I found that the flavor improved tenfold. The flavor was night and day difference. It was phenomenal. And since then, I'm very happy I waited to put this review up because I want to make sure that you guys, the viewers, have a fair assumption of this tank. Now, there is one more con, and it's sort of subjective, sort of not, and that's the fact that I cannot find it available for sale anywhere. It feels like no one has this tank yet. And it's a bit of a concern. It's also a good thing because it means they're waiting to make sure that it is what it says it's going to do. But at the same time, I hate doing these reviews and not being able to tell you guys where to buy these things or how much the price is going to be. Because given what you get in the box, and you get a lot of stuff in the box, and I'll show you guys when we do the unboxing section, just how much stuff you get. Accessories, spare coils, spare glass, all that good stuff. But again, it could be a great deal or it could be an okay deal. It depends what the price is going to be. I would say if this is in the $50 or less range for a sub-ohm tank, I think it's worth a buy. If it comes out more than that, vape budget hands, right? It's up to you guys, so I'll let you guys be the judge of that. But I think at under $50, if they can keep it under that range, I think that is an excellent price for this tank given what you get. You also get an RBA section, which is a lot of fun to play around with if you like a challenge. If you don't like a challenge, it's going to be a pain in the ass, to be honest, so I'll leave that with what it is. Apart from that, I think that pretty much covers the pros and cons. So what do you say we get down and dirty with the ModVapa Panda V12 and check it out? Alright YouTube, we are down and dirty with the ModVapa Panda V12. Let's take a look at the packaging first very quickly. Very simple white and black packaging. On the bottom you have the ModVapa V12 stainless steel. This is going to be the one for giveaway. Flip it around here and see what you get in the packaging. So first up top you get the tank itself. We'll put that off to the side just for a moment here. You also get a spare glass tank that is wrapped very nicely, I might add, in this little styrofoam type sealant. Very nice packaging here. Very clean, so you get the spare tank in there as well. Moving on to the bottom, here's where we get a ton of accessories, guys. This is just a boatload of stuff you get. Some O-rings, some seals, things like that in here. Tons of those. Put those off to the side. Silica pack. Do not ingest. Obviously moving on here, you have another bottom type pin connection down here, which is made for the RBA section, which is just right down in here. You can take a look at that. Like I said, it is a very it's a bit of a challenge to build on, but again, it does perform pretty well once you get the hang of it. And if you are in for a challenge, this is definitely going to be the challenge for you. So moving on down below, what else do you get? You get some spare coils in here. And again, you can see the coils just where they're made. They're kind of wrapped around in the cotton, and then on the inside it's got cotton as well. On the back here, this is the 1.2 ohm coil right here. Moving on here, you also get another coil. This is the 1 ohm Clapton coil. This is the one that claims to go up to 160 watts. But again, I haven't been able to test that for sure because it maxes out on all of my devices based on the voltage. But again, 1 ohm Clapton, good little coil to have. Moving on here below, you also get a 0.6 ohm. This is another little coil here. Again, they all look pretty much the same, and it's all got that style of the cotton on the outside and on the inside, which seems to work pretty well. And you have the 0.5 ohm Clapton, which I think is recommended between 60 and 120 watts, something around there. But again, you're probably going to max out your device before you actually hit that maximum wattage range. And of course, lastly, you do have the little user manual down here. Very simple user manual, nothing too crazy about it. We can take a quick look at it if you'd like. If you want to pause the video by any means, at any point you can pause it. We can see down here just all the little features, how to take it apart, things like that. And that is what you get. So moving on to the tank itself. Now that we got all that out of the way, let's check out the tank itself. Here's that airflow drip tip I talked about. Very smooth, very easy to use. If you do like using it, personally I do not. But as we can see here, you do have that dual mouthpiece kind of thing. Kind of like the TFE4 where you have the airflow coming in off the sides. And then directly in the middle is where you're going to take your inhale from the chimney. Moving on to the bottom, you have your airflow control ring. It does stop, which is nice, so it makes it easier to take it off. It's also got a little bit of a grip on it as well, as you can see, just to make it easier to get a hold of. And if we move this around as well, we can also see that there is a juice flow control valve. I don't know if you can see that, but it's just down in there. We'll move on to the top filling first. Here's the top fill. Right down there, you do have 3 slots you can fill into. It does fill pretty nicely, even with the bigger bottles. It does seem to fill pretty well. And the best part is, because it has that nice deep well inside there before it hits those holes, it will drain itself out. And if you have a little bit in there, it's not a big deal, just because it doesn't actually push it in or displace the liquid with anything pushing down on it. So you have that open kind of well part there that's going to stay open even when the cap is on. Moving on to the bottom, you have a adjustable 510 connection pin. I still don't recommend using these on hybrids. As you can see, it is still very, very close to the bottom, even with it there. And if you do loosen that out, you're not just pulling out the pin, you're actually also loosening out the 510 connection pin, which may cause issues with vaping. So again, I do not recommend this on a hybrid style mech mod for that reason. Yes, it's adjustable, but again, when you're adjusting it, you're also adjusting this bottom piece right down there. There's the bottom piece. As you'll see, the coil doesn't actually go into this piece right here. It actually screws into the base itself, or into the tank itself, not the base. So again, we'll just unscrew this really quickly. I believe it comes with the 0.5 ohm coil installed. Let's take a quick check here just to make sure. Hopefully you guys can see that. It is the 0.5 ohm coil installed, I think. If I can see that right. It is. I just have to take a quick look under the camera. A little bit hard to focus here. Small screen. 30 to 70 watts is the recommended range. Again, I think about 60 watts is preferred. We have the cotton around the coil here, and then of course on the inside as well. To put it back in, simply just put it back in through here. Nice and gentle. You don't want to ruin that cotton, and then just screw it in place just like so. Once that's in, you can put it back together just like this. Just screw it back on just like that, and you're good to go. Again, there's that airflow I talked about. A little bit restrictive, not super though, and it does have a really nice added touch to it. If you don't want the restrictiveness, you do have the option to open up this airflow up top here if you really wanted to. Personally, I prefer it closed, but of course, to each their own. With that being said, I think that's pretty much the tank itself. I don't want to get into too much detail, but what I do want to talk about is the coil. We actually have one off to the side I've been using. I've been using this coil for about 2 weeks now. I'm just going to put this back here off in the distance, and here's the coil. This is about 2 weeks of use, and as you can see, it's super clean. This is at that 85 watt mark. I'm going to take this apart, just all the cotton and everything, to show you what it looks like. We can see inside there's a coil. Again, I can't stress how clean it is for 2 weeks of use, and I've been using it quite a bit, especially this last week. I've been using it every day as my main go-to. I've probably thrown about, over the course of the last 2 weeks for just this coil alone, I would say easily 20 to 30 tanks in this. Probably in the mid-range, I'd be safe at around 25. So 25 tanks have gone through this thing at about 80 watts, and again, it's just super, super clean. So that's pretty much what you're looking at as far as the tank itself, as far as the coils. Now again, this is the one that you will win, or the winner will have. It's a stainless steel version. I have the black version. If you want to see a quick up-close look of it, it's on my DNA 200 right now. Here it is right here. Again, just a black version. Same thing. You got the airflow up top. Exact same as stainless steel. The only difference is it's black. So with that being said, let's go back up top and finish this review off. Alright guys, we're back up top with the Panda V12 by ModVapa, and the big question of the day is, do I recommend this tank? And the truth is, to say, if I lost it, would I go out and buy another one? I don't feel like that's a fair representation of the tank, because different people have different ways of buying things. Some people are collectors, some people are just in it for the vapor, and I think the best way to judge this tank is based on one question and one question alone. That question is, of course, after this review, will this tank stay in my rotation? And the truth is, it absolutely will. I have fallen in love with this tank. I love the different coil options. You can get the coils for 10 bucks at Fast Tech for a 5-pack. Unfortunately, the Panda V12, again, it's very hard to find. I cannot find it right now. If I do find it, I will let you guys know, and I will post it in the description below. But in the meantime, the only way to get this tank right now that I'm aware of is to win one. So, if you'd like to win one of these tanks, make sure to leave a comment down below. And again, you must be legal vaping age, must be a subscriber of mine. In this one, I'm going to ask you to like the video. Just a little bit of a favor for me. It means a lot if you do. Share the video with people. Love to get myself out there and love to meet new people. Always love getting new subscribers. You guys are awesome. So thank you all so much for that. So again, like the video, be a subscriber. Must be legal vaping age, and the winner will have to pay shipping as well. So if that's an issue. It's usually around 10 to 15 bucks depending on where you are in North America. If you're outside North America, it's going to be quite a bit more, unfortunately. But again, if you're willing to pay shipping, I have no issue with whoever wins. That's pretty much what I'm at right now. So again, leave a comment down below if you do want to win one of these tanks. As you saw in the unboxing section, the stainless steel version, that's the one you're going to win. I haven't used it yet. I don't plan on using it, so it's just for the winner, and that's going to be your tank and your tank to keep alone. So with that being said, guys, that ends the video here. Thank you all for watching, and of course, until next time, happy vaping, YouTube.